Hello, Thomas the Hermit here,
Chris, I'm Cindy of Educate, the humble holy lady.
and we've been wanting to get together and try to do a joint effort and talk about the humble holy laity and talk about how we started the humble holy laity and what our plans are, et cetera, et cetera. So we're kind of together and we're using this software, and I hope that everything is working correctly.
It looks to be. Anyone viewing, just let us know if you see anything that works or it doesn't work, just let us know.
Okay, so Chris, do you remember how we started doing this thing? How we got this going? The humble holy laity.
Yes, yeah, it was actually Father Mark Goring's fault because you replied to what was going on with him getting silenced. And then um, once I saw that video, I was like, a hermit. And I was like, that's pretty cool that there's an actual hermit on YouTube and they're not like just being in a documentary by Vice or BBC. They're actually making videos. And then I checked out the channel to make sure that like this was legit. And it was just the more I delved, the more I was just impressed by the fact that you bothered to show your prayer life and what led you to be a hermit and what you were doing. And I started looking at some playlists. I myself, I'd say a year before meeting you, I just had this yearning to go into more mental prayer, but you just feel like you're the only man out here who would be interested in that kind of thing. And then to run into a Catholic YouTuber like Father Mark Goring, who is in that line of spirituality, and who also responds to all of his commenters. Um, Long story short, Thomas and I made that connection while we were discussing prayer, and he helped people on his channel. And me and another guy, I think his name was Brandon, we started saying, it would just be wonderful if people could do this on their own. Um, why does it have to be locked up in the chambers of monasteries? I mean, anyone can do it. We already do Eucharistic adoration all the time. Why can't we learn more about how to grow here? So we made a Facebook group, and now we're here, and it's just been quite an adventure. And I'm just kind of excited, honestly. I just can't wait for people to join and see what we're talking about and experience what we're talking about.
Well, we started. I was not on Facebook, but Brandon had been bothering me. Brandon wanted to start a lay religious order, and I had been listening to this or the notes of this guy who put himself as Civ Educate, and he talked very intelligently, and I was like, well, I kind of like this guy. So I said, why don't I hook him up with Brandon? You know, so I hooked Chris up with Brandon, and they were emailing each other and they were talking about different things. And as they were doing that, I going, you know what, this thing about a religious order that looks really, really difficult. But why don't we start a group page online? So I started putting it together, and then I told the other two. I said I'm going to do a group page, and then I started doing it, and then I sent them an invite and said, come and join. Well, Brandon joined, and Chris came over, and they began helping to build the Facebook group of the Humble Holy Laity. And at some point, Brandon, he didn't like what was going on, and he wanted to build a lay religious order, which is not really something we were trying to do. So Brandon, who kind of was the spark that got me going, I think he left to try to do something else somewhere else. Didn't he go and form something else?
Yeah, he was trying to do like something in his local area, and he had a Facebook group for that. And he's still on. He's fighting the good fight. But he wanted to do something like that would be like within the diocese of where he lived. But we're still here.
And the people, a lot of people came off of the YouTube group, and joined us. They were very,
Yes.
very excited. And I didn't realize that Facebook, the power that Messenger had. With Messenger, you could communicate with people in a very, very fast way. So I said, you know what? I can use this to teach people how to contemplate. So we were having these like classes, where I have to type really, really fast, and
Yeah.
then people were sending me a lot of questions and this, that, and the other, but it worked,
It did. It did.
and
I
people.
think it was part of God's humor. It's just like the saints in heaven seeing these people try to contemplate God on a little chat room. It was happening.
Well, I think the exciting thing was you could also feel the Spirit of God, even though, I could be chatting with somebody in England or Australia, or in Canada, but we were all, it was like we were all together, in the Spirit,
Hmm.
in this thing.
Yep.
So it seemed like a fairly successful, it was kind of like an experiment, if you will. I really don't think, I don't know of anyone else who has tried anything as crazy as this, but, we've been doing it. And of course, now we're using the YouTube live stream like we're using it right now. But, we're not teaching contemplation right now, but we are talking about the group and its formation and how it started and what the goals are. See, the thing is that I felt that the laity could do more. I felt that you hit there's lay people. Let's say there's Buddhist lay people, right? there's
Right.
there's there's Hindu lay people, there's you know and they seem to do more.
Yeah.
Buddhist lay people, they go on weekend retreats where they spend 3 days meditating and stuff like that.
Right.
But Catholic lay people are kind of told like, well, you don't need to be doing that. That's for the nuns and the monks. You go and have babies and work and support the church and 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 by the way, good luck when you die. You know.
Right. Thomas, if I may, I literally was talking with one of our veterans on Facebook for a long conversation about how the reason why people are more interested in Eastern mysticism is because we're not offering much mysticism at all, to anyone, and I think we underestimate how attractive it is for that really personal, intimate side, connecting with God. I think that we have all these programs and we have all these, let's come together and have bishops appeal this and that, and they want to like kind of program ourselves into strumming the guitar and feeling good, but completely forgetting about the Holy Spirit. And the whole point of this is to save our souls individually and to have a deep relationship with our Father. I mean, it's just I don't know why people think like, oh, that prayer stuff is it's not really that gonna draw people in. I disagree with that.
Well, I think that the church has been teaching the laity that for so long. In fact, it has gotten so bad, I think a lot of teenagers don't even know what a nun really is, or what a
Yeah.
nun really does, or what a monk does. I think they think that the monk is the guy, who's on the Rice Krispies commercial,
Right.
or the nun is some deprived girl, who's ugly, who no one wanted to marry.
Right.
There's just a really distorted conception as to what the religious are doing by the young people, and even a lot of older people really don't know what that life is all about.
Hmm.
And I just and it's like, when these people used to have to work a lot. Isn't that correct? Chris here is an educator in civics and stuff. I mean, I understand that people were doing 14, 16-hour days, before, whether it's on the farm or a factory or where it was, so when they said that lay people didn't have very much time for prayer, I think they really meant it because
Right.
they're being working so much.
Right.
But in our modern times, lay people, have more time to pray. I mean, that's what I think. I mean, what do you think, Chris?
I think that there were particular missed opportunities within, with the Vatican II. I'm not against Vatican II. Some of the things that came right after that, and some of the motives clearly behind some of the people that were in Vatican II were not kosher, to say the least. But um, there was a missed opportunity with the modern era to see that in that, that new proclamation of the liturgy, we're going to have the liturgy in different language. People can understand it. Let's make use of the fact that people are, these kinds of prayers are accessible now. Um, they really dropped the ball in realizing that the lay people are also baptized priest, prophet, and king. It's, whether you're married or you're single and searching or you're religious, this is all supposed to aim us towards the divine bridegroom. I mean, even the people that, let's say there is someone that still has to work a 14, 16 hour, like someone in South America, someone that's in a minimum wage job. Um, there's a lot of simplicity to the point where you can say, Lord, I consecrate this work to you. And so there's really, like you said, there's no excuse for us not to take advantage of the time we have, regardless of what we're doing. So I think if whatever someone says, oh, it's too difficult, or we don't have enough time, or we have too much time, there's always a chance to build a fortress of prayer, in my opinion. And I think that's a big part of our message. We don't want to be seen as, as wonderful as they are. I don't want to be seen as someone who seems like a lofty monk or nun. There's actually a disadvantage to that. And like you said, people look at that and they think it's so lofty, it's so difficult that we shouldn't have anything to do with the prayer. They'll do all the praying for us. So I think that's where we're at.
Chris, what has been kind of your journey, prayer journey, since you started in the humble holy laity?
Yeah. After watching Father Mark Goring just a little before him, the Holy Lady, I was caught up in a lot of the Rosary, the devotion, the consecration of Mary, daily Mass. But once I got into the Humble Holy Lady and I really started committing to mental prayer and contemplation and trying to reach that level, what we learned through the Sacred Heart and through the very pure form of prayer is that and it's still happening to me. I'm still a beginner. I'm still learning a lot. There is an understanding that God has to be center. That I think even a good, well-intentioned Catholic can lose in the busyness of the day. Even if they're involved in ministries of the church, they can be like Martha. They're just they're worrying, they're trying to get everything done. And there's always a time and place to be a Martha. There's Marthas that we need, to get things organized. But at a certain point, you have to realize that there is a God who loves you as an individual, and that the numero uno reason why you're here is to grow in that intimacy and holiness with Jesus in a very personal way. And I would hear personal walk from a lot of the evangelical side. I like that idea. The charismatics, they also had that. But I just had this overwhelming thirst and longing, and I still do, to kind of see what God's all about. How deep can I go with God? Is He truly the God of love? And the more I spend time with Him, the more you have to kind of experience to really understand that He's all you really need. And that's I think it's very important in this day, especially coming from people my age and younger. where it's so noisy and people are making so much money off of getting people distracted and addicted to different things, you lose a complete sense of yourself. So I have to say that the journey has been recovering an identity that I never knew. I always considered myself a sideshow Bob. I never really saw myself as someone that amounted much to anything. And the more I prayed this contemplative prayer, and I'm with the humble holy lady, the more I see the love of the Lord, and the more I see how important it is to have these holy hours, these times where it's just you and Jesus and you. And I think that's one of the great offerings of our group. So that's been my journey, just rediscovering what my true purpose really is, and where that self-worth is going to take me through God. So that's my journey.
Wow. Um, did you have any struggles with prayer?
Yes, because often I would either seek, an ideal, something in my intellect that would try to like make me feel as if I'm going somewhere. And sometimes that would work, but when you get so reliant on your own strength to kind of like force your way into prayer, you actually miss out on a lot. Whereas contemplative prayer is much more of a surrender prayer, which it's kind of sad that people can get so caught up in like trying to make God what they want, trying to they're trying to force God and force the feelings, and I was very much caught up in that to the point where I get kind of scatterbrained. I'd be like, oh, I have to do this rosary now, I have to do that rosary now. Or maybe I didn't pray that well today because I just didn't feel like I got anything out of it. But God really is found in the silence. So the struggle was always kind of not knowing that God is found in the silence, and a very simple time of just being with them, and that's where the most of the power comes from. So that's still I'm getting kind of unraveled from all of that kind of complexity that Father Goring said. You first start like a rowboat, and you're rowing, you're trying to head towards God, and that was me. And now it's kind of turning into a sailboat where you're just catching the wind and you say, okay, God, take me where you want, and that's that. He's doing most of the work. So that was my struggle, and I'm making progress in getting away from that mentality, and it's a beautiful thing. It's very rewarding, to say the least.
Chris, can you tell everyone how old you are?
I'm 27 right now.
I never met Chris face to face in the beginning. I actually thought that he was an older gentleman. I thought he was in his 50s at least. And I was very, very surprised when I discovered that he was 27. He's a young man with a lot of wisdom, and his wisdom has actually increased as his prayer life has increased. So much so that Chris is actually hosting a show. It's on Saturdays and on Thursdays. Is that correct?
Right now, I've just been doing Saturdays, but Thursdays will return. I've just gotten back into it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
But on Saturdays he does a live streaming show. He picks his own topics. Um, he shares, and the wisdom that comes out of him is quite something else. I can watch his show and I can learn from Chris now. It's kind of interesting. I've been the teacher, but now in some ways he's teaching all of us. So one of the great things. Chris is also what we call the perfecti in the group. We chose these Latin terms um, for as part of the Roman army, and we say that we're a legion, we're a Roman legion of prayer. And Chris is what you would call in simple terms the novice master of our group. So he's kind of in charge of teaching new people, how to find their way and what they need to do within our group. And that's also one of the reasons why he has a show. But these are the things that he has been doing, and he's also pretty much a big key. He's very much um, after me. He's the most important leader within the HHL, the Humble Holy Laity, and he has done much work for the group, much in leadership, much in praying with people and praying for people. I can see he's looking a little embarrassed, but it is all true. What he has been doing, and I'm very glad to have come to know him, and I could not have asked for better help if I had tried. You know, there's lots of other people that are helping within the group. I feel right now that the group on YouTube is really starting to hunger and thirst for prayer, and it's not, it's not necessarily those who go to the live streams. The live stream is good. If you can make it to the live stream, I think you'll feel the support of a group of people praying, and that's very excellent. But I see throughout the days, I see some people are there on some days and some are not there on other days, and then there's other people that are there. There's quite a few people now in the YouTube, Thomas the Hermit YouTube channel, and there's a real hunger for prayer there. And I'm really trying to see if we can't get that stirred up, if we can't get that moving, if we can't get that um, and so I'm working towards that. And also, so you can also see Chris's show on the other channel, the Humble Holy Laity is the channel. Now he puts a leader out on the Thomas the Hermit channel every week introducing his topic. And so you can always look for his videos about the topics that he's covering, and those topics are covered in the Humble Holy Laity channel. I started the other channel with the hopes that lay people could share their faith, share their prayer life, and but we're having problems getting that going. But I'm feeling very encouraged on what's happening on the Thomas the Hermit channel. That because we're keeping up a consistent prayer, and I think that consistent prayer is starting to overflow. And I hope it continues to overflow. I hope people can join us in that consistent prayer that we're having. Whether you're praying with the live stream or you're praying with the video. A lot of times I was like, well, we had a good group at the live stream, but what are the people doing? But I could feel it. I could feel it. Okay, that the people that were watching the videos and praying along with the videos were really helping the group. That it's multiplying God's grace. It's causing an action to happen. You want to say anything about that, Chris?
Yeah, I think the group prayer is something that it might be the secret weapon. I mean, after all, Our Lady gave us the rosary. Maybe the Lord showed her that we're going to need a rosary to keep people unified. But I think now is the time. We have the capability of unifying. Now is the time for us to come together in prayer. And grace works when you're talking about group prayer. We've learned that grace works like a nuclear reaction. So you have 5 people praying, and I actually read an article where people praying the Rosary found this. You have 5 people praying the Sacred Heart contemplation or the Divine Office. Well, it's actually like a multiplying effect. It's not an addition effect. And on top of that, Thomas learned that even if you miss the stream, if you pray the recording, the Lord takes that into account. So there's a lot of hope here, with just the few that we've had interacting and getting involved, there's a change. And I think that it's a mixture of both the fact that in these times we're afforded so much grace, where sin abounds, grace abounds even the more, and the mercy abounds, but also, we're kind of stuck in a very distracted, an anti-God culture, which is part of what my stream's about. I don't mean it like, oh, we hate God, and God doesn't exist. I mean, there's an assault on our minds, from all this TV and internet and stuff, and it's so contrary to the very simple, loving moments with God that once you get a taste of it, you just want more. So when someone lights up, when someone really is interested, and you're getting that longing, I think it's like it's game over. They're gonna just keep going with it, and so that's why I have so much confidence, because it isn't Thomas and I, with our special business and marketing degrees, trying to get people to pray, and it's our our intellect or whatever doing it. It's really the Lord taking it from there once we get people in the door. So it's kind of awesome, to be honest.
Wow. Is there anything you want to talk about, Chris? I'm running out of things.
I think that with Thomas and we have something very unique here. I don't remember. I can't think of any groups outside of what's his name. Third Eagle Books. He's into looking at Revelations. He does a rosary stream for President Trump, but I really can't think of any other YouTube streams where people pray and they do contemplation, right? And I think it's this is the way to go. Imagine you have people that are really burnt out. This is a perfect place. If you feel burnt out, anyone watching here, this is a perfect place. This is like an oasis, right? This is a place where you can come and all the noise stops and you can just pray and you can be with the Lord. And that's the problem, because when people walk out of church on Sunday, I'm not a big sports fan. Our pastor is. He loves the Eagles. But it gets to the point where, and I think the devil knows this, they immediately, coming out of all that consolation and whatever they felt in there, they immediately just go back to the news, back to, the worries, anxieties, and the noise and all that. And people don't realize that you can take church with you in here. You don't have to just leave it in the corner and throw it away. All right, we're done. You can have as much peace as you want if you really want it. And I think this is what we need. We need more channels like this where people want to say, you know what, I don't want to just be the minimalist, and I don't want to just like think of God as a concept and maybe he'll do a miracle once in a while. I want to really experience something, the most beautiful, deep thing I possibly can. Maybe they just haven't, honestly, Thomas, maybe they just haven't been, I don't know, again, I don't know many channels that talk about St. Teresa of Avila's, the waters of contemplation like you did. I don't know. I just, you don't hear it in CCD. I don't know of anyone that teaches about the experience of prayer. Just maybe concepts and what to do, but nothing like that, to be honest, at least in the Catholic side. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's something unique about what we're doing. I think that there's something unique, and my journey itself, I had a teacher. I had a good teacher of prayer who taught me when I was a young man. I was in my 20s, probably a little younger than Chris. And she had been a Teresian nun. She had studied mystical theology in a pontifical university, and she was teaching lay people. So in a sense, she planted a seed in me, um, and some of the things that I learned from her was about people can experience God in these ways. Okay. Furthermore, she also taught that Teresa of Avila said that that the doorway to this form of prayer is open to every baptized person. So it's not a matter of, it is a gift, but it's not an exclusive gift. You know, are there personalities that may have a tough time doing this kind of prayer? Yes, there are. Okay. But most people can still enter into this prayer. And even those difficult people, if they want to slow themselves down, they could probably achieve this prayer. So one of the things that has been taught that was a mistake in the church was this was a gift that was only accessible to whom God called you to. Now, I'm sure that there's a lot to do with that, but I want to say this, and I think that God wants me to say this. If you crave the quiet, if you love sitting alone or going into a church by yourself and just sitting there quietly and waiting upon the Lord, that's God calling you into contemplative prayer. And you don't need to say, well, it's a special gift and I don't have it. You need to start saying instead, it's a special gift and God is calling me to it. you know and I think that for our first stream, for me and Chris, we don't even have the tech right. I wasn't able to do exactly what I wanted with the tech, but we have done our first stream, and I'm glad that we've done it because we needed to both come out and share and interact. You needed to meet both of us at the same time, and so you could get a much bigger picture of what we're trying to do in the humble holy laity, and how we're trying to build up the laity to learn contemplative prayer. And this is really the goal. The goal isn't, some freaky mind control or manipulation or anything like that. The goal is actually to teach people how they can interact with God in mystical contemplation. Do you want to say anything on that, Chris?
Yeah, it's both. At least in my experience, it's been both easier than I thought and more difficult than I thought. It's funny, and I
That's
think
true.
it is. It's
It
especially
is easier than you thought,
yeah,
but
it
it
is.
but it's also more of the cross than you thought.
Exactly. And it's a one. No matter what the cross, it's a joyous walk because, um, you know, I would add I would add Thomas, outside of being called to silence. If you're just feeling irritated with the sense that we have all the gadgets, we have all the modernity, and we're the most miserable medicated mess that ever messed up, right? We're fat. We take this or that, Prozac. We have all these addictions. We have people. Clearly, the natural sciences have run their course, right? And clearly, in my opinion, there's no other answer now than to seek the Lord in a very deep way, because one, you know, for those that are like kind of into the church militant, we want to go out there, we want to fight. I think this is great for spiritual warfare. You have, the Sacred Heart has been both a reparational devotion, and now we find I have a contemplative use for it. If you're interested in saying, how can I give back to the Lord? How can I, do reparation for the sins I see, for my own sins? There you go. We that needs served. The second is just the more you grow in holiness and the more you pray, that light is going to affect the world. When God's coming down, it's light. Just kind of like how natural light, it reflects everywhere. Like the sun was the same thing with Greece. The devil doesn't like that. It's quite uncomfortable when heaven gets a little bit closer to earth, and you're opening up to heaven. And lastly, funnily enough for me, and I think I'm talking to two other trier, they're very much onto this. I think we have an issue where we assume spiritual issues are psychological only. But if you look at and this is where like the ancient Greek philosophy and where the church comes from and St. Thomas Aquinas. If you look at what the church fathers said and what the philosophers said, they always saw that there's a connection between the mind and the spirit. That's where we make our decision making. That's where God usually interacts with us. And we've lost that. And so when people run around like their head cut off and act like they're just so cool because they know that God couldn't exist because there's just so much scientific blah 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 blah. They completely project their atheism onto something that was always supposed to be sought in darkness, and it was something supposed to be very personal and beautiful and intimate, and yet at the same time they have absolutely no answers to why everyone is losing their minds, and they are losing their minds. It seems as if that there's been these assumptions made with pop psychology, and you have all these people wondering, why am I such a mess? Let's not talk about sin. Let's not talk about about detachment to the world. But I'm sure there's got to be a reason as to why my life is such a mess and why I don't have any inner peace. And they go to these psychologists who charge an arm and a leg, and they don't come out any better. So I think there's that little third element I'm starting to kind of discern there as to a possible reason why you want to get involved. Um, you got anything on that, Thomas? The psychology, the psychobabble?
You said it very, very excellently. You said it very, very well. I mean, um, Archbishop Fulton Sheen quoted a book often where he said, "Whatever happened to sin?" There's a book called "Whatever Happened to Sin." Um, he basically, Archbishop Sheen used to argue that people gave up confession and they started going to the psychiatrist's couch.
Mm-hmm.
There's just, of course there's a connection. We can talk about mental health, but what about moral health?
Right.
And what if you don't get your moral health right? Well, if your moral health is right, it could knock your psychological health all out of whack,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
gluttony. There you go. What is gluttony is a sin, and what happens when you're gluttonous? You're 400 pounds in the McDonald's. That's not very healthy. I mean, it's common sense.
anyways, I think that we have done a very good live stream, and we're going to be doing some more in the next few weeks to come. And I thank Chris for joining me in this, and I hope everyone enjoyed what we are doing. Dale and Carla, I thank you for joining us. And for now, we are praying for you. And do say a prayer for us, and we will talk to you later.